Action.
You should be on though.
Are we on?
It takes 10 seconds for it to show me.
Do I get a little bell or a little ding or something so I know?
I can just say, yeah, I see you. There you go.
All right.
Man, I'm out. Other meeting.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for September the 7th, 2001. Can we all rise to say the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please all be seated. Could I call to order? Roll call, please.
Mazich.
Here.
Kernan.
Here.
Curtin.
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Fletcher.
Here.
McCanny.
Here.
Burton.
Here.
Thank you.
Good evening. We have a full board. Next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. And you all have the agenda before you, so can I have a motion from a member to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Lloyd. Can I have support?
Support.
Support from
Mitchell.
Glenn. Agenda approved. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. So the next portion on the agenda is the public comment. And it is only for the items that are on our agenda. But I also want to say, too, we have a public hearing coming up on Shannon. So if you do have public comments and you want to wait, you can make them before, or you could wait and make them during the public hearing for Shannon. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment now? Okay, seeing no one to make a comment, let's move forward with the public hearing. And the public hearing is the Shannon Precision Fasteners. It is a special land use application to operate a manufacturing plant on parcel 0101301054 and in the L1 Limited Industrial Zoning Districts. May I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Glenn will open
Support.
the public hearing. Support by David. Public hearing is opened, looks like 6:30, 6:31. So with that being, is there anybody here that would like to make, comments with regard to the application before us?
My name is Lila Ball.
Would you please step forward?
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Lila Ball, and I believe that was there a letter issued by my son, who lives right across the street from the Shannon. Was there a letter sent by email for him
Yes.
to be read?
We
to
did
be read?
receive
Okay,
a
good.
letter from your son.
That's all I want to know. Thank
All
you.
right. Please make it note the letter and have it in the comment section. Is there anybody else which would like to make comment at this time during the public hearing? Okay. Seeing no further comments from anybody, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Glenn?
Mitchell.
Glenn made a motion.
Support.
Support from David. Public hearing is now closed. So moving forward, we've got the approval of the minutes from July 6th. You've all received a copy.
And I got a correction.
Okay.
Where we're making the vote down there,
Where
it
you at?
says Curtin and Burton said yes. Curtin said no. I'm not first sure if Fletcher said no.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
All right, so noted.
It's not a Curtin Burton anymore?
It looks to me like it's got us both listed that says yes. Well, mine should say no.
Any other comments from the board members with regard to the minutes?
Wait, that was, because I said no on that one.
Yours says no.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And I thought
Where are
you
you
just
seeing,
that.
I
where are you
thought you
seeing
and I
the
were the only
score?
no's.
You were the only no's.
It's on the back of the sheet.
Yep.
Yes.
The next to last, big paragraph.
Oh, it's, okay, I'm looking for a table.
I'm thinking Fletcher was yes, but I'm not going to say that for sure.
Ah,
There were two,
Oh, it's right.
if I
Got it.
recall, there were 2 no votes.
I thought I looked right. All right. Awesome.
Are we comfortable now with the minutes? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment?
Move to approve the minutes as presented with the change made.
Okay,
I'll support that.
okay, Ray. Okay, we have a motion from Glenn Mitchell and
Mitchell, yeah.
from Ray Curtin
Curtin.
to approve the minutes with the amendments made. May I have a vote, please?
Mazik?
Yes.
Curtin?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes?
Fletcher? Yes. Kerner?
Yeah.
McCanny?
Yes.
Burton?
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Okay, approval of minutes. Communications, we have no communications. We have nothing as far as old business, so we are gonna move forward with new business. First item on the list is the Shannon Precision Fasteners, the special land use application to operate the manufacturing plant. So I think at this time, we'd probably like to hear from our representatives, you know, from our consultants.
Do you want to give the applicant a chance to make the presentation, or would you like my report first?
What, we could do that, it doesn't matter to me if we want the applicant.
Your-
Who, is the applicant, who's the applicant here, please? All right, please, come forward, tell us your name.
Sure. Kevin Johnson, Roads of Johnson, 285 North Ally Drive, Fenton, Michigan. So we're here again tonight before you. I think we were here a few years ago with Ed Lum and Shannon Precision Fasteners to present our plan for the next phase through the project that we presented to you years ago. Both as we developed the property, we mentioned the facilities that we're going to do, and this is number 2. We're super happy. I think this is Ed's hometown, so we're super happy that we can bring jobs back to this area, to the Fenton Holly area. So we're here tonight. We brought Justin from Rowe Engineering to talk about anything technical on the drainage or the facility, and then John Aslin's the architect, also with us, that is here to talk about the facility. Any questions? So depending on your flavor, if you want to talk about site or architectural, we can do either one first, according to you, or we can go through his review comments and we can address them, whatever's easiest for you.
Okay.
And I can be Vanna White.
And we'll just leave it like this. So the first item that we're talking about this evening is the special use land application for the second phase of Shannon Precision Fasteners. We prepared a report dated August 31st, which goes through a brief description of the project. And in our report, I highlighted for you what the intent is for the limited industrial district. And before I get too much farther, let me just take a step back and introduce myself. I'm Jamie Garflow with McKenna Associates, hoping to work more with the Township as its planning representative. John Jackson will continue to be involved as well, but hopefully you'll be seeing more of my face at upcoming meetings. So we went through and looked at just some very basic things like what's the permitted special use that they're asking for, which is an industrial plant engaged in the assembly, manufacturing, processing of metal materials. That standard has been met. The location of the special use could be anywhere on the portion as long as it fits within the setbacks of the overall property. That standard has been met. The height, rear yard, side yard setbacks have all been met. And the lot coverage was recently updated in their latest submittal to show that between both buildings, they're only at about 5.25% floor area ratio to the total acreage of the property. So they're well within the standard, which I believe is 30% max.
Okay, you answered my, yeah. Go ahead.
The code outlines 7 standards which need to be considered as for the approval of special land use application. The first would be that it would be harmonious in accordance with the general objectives or any specific objectives of the Township Master Plan and compatible with the natural environment. Our comment is the proposed use is consistent with the general intent and that the use is compatible with the other industrial use located directly next door to the north. While the use is consistent with the master plan, the execution of the architecture and the landscaping could be improved to better meet the design criteria that are outlined within the enterprise and recreation district contained within the master plan. And I go into more detail in that when we go through the site plan stuff. Second, it would be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained as to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity and will not change the essential character of the area. Our comment is that the construction, design, and operation of the new facility is harmonious in appearance with the existing uses in the general vicinity. However, the intended character, as described in the master plan, is somewhat different in its nature and should be considered by the planning commission. Now, what I mean by that, for a little more clarification, is it's very consistent with the existing uses on the current property because it's simply an extension of the second phase of that development, but it's not necessarily compatible with or in keeping with the residential character of the properties directly across the street. And I'll get more into that in the site plan thing as well. But overall, we believe that it does meet this criteria. Third is that it will not be hazardous or disturbing to the existing or future land use or future nearby uses. Our comment is that it will not be to that extent. And there again, I point out the inconsistency with some of the other residential uses across the street and to the east. Fourth, it will be compatible with adjacent uses of land and will promote the use of land in a socially and economically desirable manner. Our comment is certainly that there will be an economic benefit to the development of the land with the proposed use, increasing the tax base for the township, employment opportunities, and is compatible with the adjacent land use next door. 5, that the project would be served adequately by essential public services and facilities, or that the persons responsible for the establishment of the proposed use will provide adequately for such service at the facility. Our comment is all necessary essential public services are currently available to the proposed location. 6, that it will not create any additional public costs that would significantly decrease property value of the surrounding properties. We believe that there should not be an additional public cost associated with this proposal and should not have a deleterious effect on surrounding property values. I say that with a little asterisk on there because we're not fortune tellers and we can't see into the future, but that's our general belief from our experience that these types of developments either stabilize or increase property values in the general vicinity as long as the facility is well designed, well maintained, and operates as approved in the site plan.
A question. On the first 1 through 6, they all say will not or will, but the last one says should. Is there a reason why everything was will until that point?
Well, because we believe that with more certainty in the definition in those first 6 items, and like I said, I can't necessarily dictate or predict what property values are ultimately going to do in the area as a result of this building. So that's why it's should instead of will. And then the last one is that it meets the requirements and standards of the chapter and other applicable laws, standards, ordinances, and regulations. And our comment is that as proposed, aside from requiring the special land use, it meets or exceeds all the requisite standards, laws, regulations once the applicant addresses the items that are outlined in our site plan review letter. So in conclusion, we would say that the request for an industrial plant engaged in assembly, manufacture, processing of metals is compatible with the limited industrial district subject to site plan approval, and we recommend approval of the special land use. Do you have any questions?
When we have a special use before us, and I just want to bring this attention to the board members, the special land use under the ordinance then allows the planning commission to address any additional changes or anything that we do feel should, gives us a little bit of room to make some changes so we know if it will fit within what our standards are for our ordinances and our master plan.
I think she was trying to change it. We can barely hear you, so probably need the microphone closer. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's just,
Is it not on?
No, it's on.
you need to be a little closer to it.
Just pull it closer.
I can get loose. Did you hear what I said? I was just in reference saying to you at a planning commission meeting when we come before with an application, being a special land use then gives the planning commission opportunity to review this. And if we need to make any changes or add any changes, we can do that, working of course with the applicant in the special land use. So with that, I would like to ask the board members, after you've reviewed the letter and reviewed the plan, do you have further questions in here? And I'd like to hear your comments.
I have a question. So, the master plan that we have now, when was that one put into effect?
Well, that was back, about 5 years ago, your master? 2016.
2016. And then, okay, so that's been around for only 5 years.
Correct.
Did the zoning in that area change at that time, or was it the same? And was it still light industrial?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now, is it light industrial on both sides of Dixie, or just to one side of Dixie?
Just one side.
So here we are plagued with another edge zoning situation, looks like to me,
Well, there's
where the
always
two
a
zones
cutoff.
meet. There's always a
There's always, in
Yeah.
every zoning, there's always a cutoff.
right. And then the plan this was proposed in 2018, right? The plan for this whole site.
And before we bought the land, so we met with the township before we bought the land and laid out a master plan of what our plans were. Went through the whole process up front as they wanted to relocate from southern Michigan up here
Right.
to their hometown. So we wanted to make sure it was something the township wanted, so we went through that process before we bought the land. Then we did buy the land, went through the process, all those planning, and then we did our first. You're right. We did our first phase back then in 2016 through 18. And then they occupied the facility, so yes.
But in that plan, did you show all the phases and the
absolutely.
whole? So
Yes,
this is
both.
not really a surprise.
No,
has
this is
been-
there's 5 buildings that have been
Okay.
master planned, both with the engineering firms and the township's team to just show our plan for the long term, over the next 20 years, over our lifetime. Hopefully I'm still here at that point. And that's correct. This
Okay.
is just number 2.
And then so in the letter, I don't know, did everybody get the letter?
Yeah.
Does the public see this letter or not?
Yes.
So I'm concerned with just the corporate being a good citizen type situation going on in the area.
Yeah.
I don't know the ordinances exactly, but we could research them, I guess. But my only concern is as this grows, that it maintains the ability to enjoy the area around it and not polluting,
For sure.
light pollution, sound pollution, air pollution.
So-
And it looks like there's a good enough plan for watershed, because it's easy to maintain. But the other ones are a little bit more difficult to control, so to speak.
Understand.
Also, is there any berming or any type of sound mitigation
Yes.
plans on
And
this?
I think that's one of the site plan comments, and one of our comments was we'd like to keep all the
I've
trees
seen-
and all the foliage that's there. We'd prefer not to cut it down and plant small trees when there's beautiful oak trees and big trees there. So I think last time there wasn't an opportunity because they wanted us in the first one to put a berm, and we wanted to walk the site. So this time we'd request, instead of just mowing it all down and putting a berm, we'd like to keep, if you've driven it, it's heavily wooded down Dixie. And so we'd like to keep those trees and walk with the consultants in the township we'd like to keep all the trees, and if they want some, obviously a willow or a scrub tree gone, and we'd like to clean up the underbrush with what I'd call the garbage, scrubby little bush things that grow up, but all the hardwood, we'd like to keep all the trees. We want to keep all the, both on Belford and on Dixie, so that would be our request if we could do that. And then if there's gaps in that, we'd like to plant new trees. Again, we like it the way it is. Ed likes to even hunt the land, and so it was when he bought it, he's like, hey, don't be taking away my good hunting. So we like what's there. We want to keep that for both the residents and for ourselves. We'd like to have it as wooded as possible. So we, again, with your blessing, we'd like to keep as much of that and then landscape as appropriate where there's not vegetation across the front and make it look beautiful. That would be, I do a lot of projects. I don't always have a supportive owner that wants to keep it natural and to beautify, and so far that's been extremely generous that way. So we'd like to do that.
And I'd like to point out too, because this is written down in text, and the people maybe in the future won't be able to read that, but this is also on a 5-lane highway, and in between I-75 and Dixie is kind of like a triangle effect here. So this isn't a dirt road going through the country and all of a sudden we're going to put up an industrial complex. This has been a master plan as an industrial area and a light industrial area. So that should mean that there's minimal impact to the environment around it and also to visual and other impediments.
To follow on Michael, but there's actually gravel pits many to the south, and there's a lot heavily traveled with semi-trucks, and so it's not a quiet rural area through there in the first place.
Right. I just want that on
about
text
noise
too.
But yes, that's important to kind of
because we're looking at pictures, and they're not going to have pictures.
That's exactly right.
20 years from now, as they're burning pitchforks.
Any other member with a comment? I do have a couple comments.
Sure.
I did drive down there and I made note because you do have your houses along Belford Road, and there are a couple residential houses that are fairly close to Dixie Highway along Belford Road, which is my concern a little bit because looking at your map, that's a very large building. And you just said this is a second phase and you plan on having, did I hear right?
Well, at least the opportunity, again, of the economy. They used to be, again, Ed went to high school here in Holly. It used to be in Grand Blanc, and their facilities are now down south. So we'd like to bring the jobs back to the county, and this area, back to his hometown. So we bought the piece of property with the intent to start to relocate jobs that are in southeastern Michigan back up here. So obviously, Lord willing, and how the business would grow, if this was, in a year and a half ago when our business was shut down, I don't know that we'd be standing here today. Or if in 2008 it took us 5 years or more to recover. So again, currently the automotive sector is okay, but if not, then this would be the last phase. And so again, at the whole point of a hometown and being collaborative is to show together what the intent is together, right? To grow together and to bring those jobs back. And we wouldn't be standing here in one second phase if we didn't think this was good for his hometown and for the township and what everybody wanted. So again, the size of the facilities, these have all been master planned and all been shown to the township as part of the initial, before we even bought the property. This was our intent. And again, obviously a size of a facility has to fit somewhere in the property.
So I guess my question is, do you have other buildings planned after this, or it's just going to be this? Okay.
Just this.
Do this. Well, like I said, and I looked at the residential homes. They're on Belford, right on the corner across the street, and I did pull up the future land use map, which does designate that those areas in there are for commercial use.
It took me 20 years to build. The last facility that I built for Ed was in 1999 and 2000. And we built it in the city of Detroit.
But we as the planning commission members, we want to be sure today that what we set down for you as rules are rules that are going to be able to be followed and be understood 10 or 20 years down the road.
Absolutely, for sure.
In looking with your comments about the trees and about the berming, I know in one comment it said, with putting maybe a 4-foot wall along there. Well, I know that's kind of hard to do, a wall. It might be more than it actually needs, but I really encourage Shannon to be sure that you do keep as many of the older trees, the bigger trees along there, and even add some additional trees.
Sure.
I think you've all seen this sometimes. A company will come in and they'll build a plant or they'll put up a commercial business and they come along and they'll put in some trees and then the trees get neglected and maybe they plant 20 trees and then you drive down there and you've got 9 of them are dead.
No, and we'd like to walk it, so we'd put on record, we'd walk with the planners, and they'd walk all of Belford Road and the Dixie, and we'll only take down what trees they deem necessary. And if there's a spot where they want us to take down a willow or something, then we'll adhere to their recommendation to replace those with the proper trees. Obviously, one giant tree isn't worth one small one, so if we need to plant a few or do something to screen that.
Because I do believe you did add additional tree and
Yeah.
did landscaping throughout your plan.
And we want to make sure it's right, like, so at the end, if they think we're missing a spot because they physically have walked it and there's the, again, I don't know what you call underbrush, but some of that's not very
With
good.
105 acres also, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, you're
interrupt you.
fine.
With 105 acres, I guess I was wondering why you have it so close to Dixie, why you did not maybe move the plant back.
Because as the plant grows, they continue to grow the facility and grow the utilities and all the things that needed, right? So currently, as you know, the utilities aren't complete all the way through there. We're bringing down the utilities as part of our plan. So both, as we built the facility out, if we never get to that other phase, to be all the way up through there would be a waste of resources, even the road and the rest. So to clear cut all the way up through there to land balance, if we were to build up by the freeway, the whole property would get clear cut to land balance because there's probably a 30-foot elevation change or more?
Yeah, more than that.
Maybe 40-foot elevation change. So in order to go up and through there, you probably would land balance. We probably would lose most of the. Speaking as a developer and things I've done in Grand Blanc, a lot of those places on facilities this large, first thing you would clear all the vegetation, you'd bring in those big pan scrapers and you'd mass grade the whole facility and land balance it for all phases. So if we went to the back, everything would be gone.
Okay.
So that would be the worst place to start.
In some of your comments, you referred where you talked about enterprise, recreation district, and the intended character. I mean, your plant now, the current plant you have there, I think the facility looks very nice. You keep the area
Yes.
very clean, very nice. You certainly
They
encourage
do.
that going forward.
Yes.
I noted as far as the facades along the building, and has there been change, or are you going to keep the same
Keep the
color
same long-term,
scheme?
yeah, same color scheme long-term. So the goal would be that they're, 30 or 40 or 50-year facilities without any maintenance. That would be the goal, just like you'd build a school. I just was in a school the other day, and then their goal was that there'd be no major maintenance in 25 years, and then after that you do real maintenance, and then 40 or 50 years you'd have to do major renovations. So the goal would be there'd be no roofing, no siding, no block work done in the facility over the next my lifetime, so that in the end the facility is long-lasting materials, which right now those are the current most expensive materials that we can buy for a facility, whether it's that pre-insulated panel, both for insulation to meet the energy code, their permanently finishes, the roof's a 50-year roof, and then block obviously is tried and true, which you have here.
Okay, well, again, as I said, the building
Yeah.
seemed a little closer to the road because
Yeah.
there also was discussion about a future if there was a path that needed to be along
Mhm.
there. So that was my question. Could you not move it back? What if that happens down the road and we do move into that
So you do
phase
have an
and we
easement.
have to look at
So we
that.
do have an easement. So there's a 20-foot easement across the front. So for any paths, if you guys ever change or widen the road or put walking paths through the community, it's already set aside there. This was already there.
I see you still have to submit a lot of your permits. A lot of your permits, you've gotten your septic permits, different
We did
permits?
get our health department
Soil
permit, so we're all
erosion.
set. Yep, and then our soil erosion, and we also have our water permit, and we're getting ready to start our water
Okay,
for the utilities,
well,
and then we'll meet with the fire chief and do that same review that we did last time. The current building there is the little firewall that the fire chief, so the building's strategically located, so next to the firewall that we put at the chief's request, and then the building will marry up to that. But we're also bringing public water down
From Genesee County?
from Genesee County at Shannon's expense to bring that water down Dixie. So
Wow.
that'll be great. The chief will be super happy, I think.
I know that our supervisors worked real hard
Yes.
to try to
Yes,
bring the water down from Genesee County.
I know they have.
Um,
So that was great. Anyways, you guys have been very good about that and collaborative and helped us with that.
Will that water be available to any other residents?
They're talking about bringing it up from, whole regional. I think they've talked about bringing it from Oakland County and bringing that all the way up Dixie. So then we'd get to this point, and then you'd bring to that point. And I think Row Engineering's working for all Oakland and all the counties, right?
Yeah, we're involved with both.
They're doing the research at the park, everybody wants it, so that's part of we're the Pied Piper to get the ball started.
Okay.
Hopefully somebody picks up the ball
Yeah.
and finishes it, right? That'd be great.
You're getting sanitary sewer as well, right?
Sanitary is not coming yet until they upgrade the full interceptor, but that was the plan.
Yeah.
I do have approved plans for sewer and water, but the powers that be have other plans to make it bigger and grander, including more of the county, of your county. So I think they're increasing it. Right, more capacity, more locations.
Yeah, the KCI.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Is this facility open 24 hours, or do they shut down, at a certain time?
What are your hours?
The distribution center is not 24 hours. The plant, we will have a limited group on the third shift. Most of the staff will be on the first two shifts. We'll have retreat operators and some maintenance done on.
Couple people, a few people, handful, just to keep the, because it has to stay on.
That's one, 24 hours.
Yeah, internal machines, yeah.
I just
Just-
wonder about the
yeah.
noise level, that's all.
Just as maintenance only.
When people hear the word industrial, they think
I know.
smokestacks, right?
I know, they do.
And there's no smokestack, there's
No,
nothing coming out of the building that you're gonna see.
no, again, the stuff that they have to vent out, they'll vent out. Again, we don't want a rubber roof where it leaks, so the stacks that they have will be all curbed in and through the metal roof.
Will
So
there
it's-
be any outside?
I mean, there'll be you got the stuff for the process, but it's not like
There's stacks, but they're not smoke.
there's no smokestacks.
Yeah.
It's not smoke.
And there will be no outside storage?
No outside storage except for the stuff. Do you have anything small?
Okay.
No?
It's all inside.
All inside?
Good. Very similar facilities in Mount Whitney Rolls.
Yeah.
Madison.
Yeah.
And you can see they're kept up very well. Our
Super well.
Our community's one of our 5 stakeholders named in our mission. It's important for us to make sure that we're meeting your expectations as
Okay.
well.
Are you moving some of your operations from the southern part of the state up to here, or is this new business?
It'll be both.
Okay.
We'll have some coming up, and then we'll bring in some new,
Mhm.
invest in some new technologies as well to make us more competitive in certain size ranges. That will be in this new facility.
They have high standards. I think it was GM Supplier of the Year a couple years in a row.
We run 5 years in a row, GM Supplier of the Year.
Mhm.
It's very, like I said.
It's nice to have a supportive owner that's,
Yeah.
wants
Yeah.
to run a good business.
Well, it does fit into the ordinance requirements as far as zoning, but again, like I said, we do need to be aware, we still have residential homes along there, and to be aware if there's anything that we feel that needs to be considered. Dixie Highway or the Dixie Corridor, I believe, is gonna open up more. And,
That will bring more noise, more traffic.
which there is
From
now
Dixie,
some with the,
yeah.
you have the mining along there, you've got the Renaissance Festival and the Mount Holly ski and.
There was
so
an
there
ORV
is-
guy. I was getting my car dirty on Saturday. I was driving my daughter. So there's a lot of going on. And between the ORV, I didn't even know what was going on.
We
And
need to be,
between that and the festival, I was a little surprised.
There won't be substantially more, one thing at the distribution center that exists today, there's a fair amount of truck traffic coming in and out. This facility being manufacturing, it won't have nearly the amount of trucks moving in and out of it, so that's.
and I do think that, and of course, this is something as the planning commission moves forward with the township to review our master plan, we may want to also review the residential areas along there to make sure that, we're making the right decisions as far as future zoning. Is there any other questions? Do you?
Couple
want to-
kind of off the topic. It shows Evans Road on here. It was actually closed off when they put I-75 through in the 60s. Does that really still exist as a right? It looks like it's the northern edge of your property, so I assume that's just a boundary.
It's just a
Would
boundary.
it ever be opened up? It probably wouldn't make any difference for you because you have your other driveways, but I was just surprised to see it on
It's
there.
so low.
It's
And
actually blocked off our property's gonna blocked off from that because of our retention ponds and there's a
the
water.
septic and all the utilities are down there, so you can't
Okay.
access it.
So there's really no purpose for us. It's a 2-track right now.
I just wondered if it was abandoned back to the property owners, but it doesn't look like on this, it looks like it's still a roadway, basically.
To our records, it's just a vacated road, but the right of way is still there for a road.
Okay.
So as far as Shannon goes, it's not Shannon's property.
Okay, yeah. Now, the other question I have is really, is you are moving some things from your other facilities here. What's happening to those? Are you closing those or just?
We have, we're growing.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay.
Our customers.
And I guess my long-term thing is you have a attractive facility now. It looks like it will be, but I like ones that are going to be here for the long term and not be abandoned, because that's where you see a lot of industrial areas look very bad. As whereas they come in quickly, then leave areas that don't look so nice. So
We have two options for the plant that we're going to move some of the equipment out of. One, we have another business by the name of Emerald Steel Processing in the Nice area. That facility that we're going to move equipment out of could be moved to that company, or we might use it for overflow from some of our Auburn Hills facility equipment. So we've got options, but we're growing. And one thing about automotive, you can't wait until the business is there. You have to be ready ahead. So we're at a point where we reach certain pounds and pieces, and we've got to get started.
And I think, Lloyd, you might have been on the planning commission long enough for the first phase, but when I came on, it had just been approved, and I got the general impression that most people were relatively happy with what happened. They planted more trees than they were required to at the time. I think they were happy how it looked, and it seemed like, sorry the neighbors are not happy about it, but unfortunately on Dixie Highway, I think you're just going to have to deal with it because of our areas in Township. Where would you want to develop it? Dixie Highway, where you have the traffic, a place to handle the traffic.
And like I
so.
said, we want to be good neighbors, and we want to make sure the trees are right. We want to do the best job we can to be a good neighbor. And so again,
Trees make us happy, and how?
Yeah, no, and we, like I said, we want to make sure that we don't follow the ordinances to clear it out and replace them. And we want to make sure, and especially in those areas, if we can keep them and walk with the township, we'd sure like the opportunity than just to make a blank plan and show 2 pine trees there. We'd sure like the opportunity to keep that stuff if we could. So.
As I recall, it was a very smooth process the last time you
It's
were
been
here.
great.
We asked for certain things, we got things, and there was some give and take, and then we got a tour of it when they opened the building. We were invited for a tour, saw the building, and it was a very nice operation and very smoothly run.
So the decisions made, it sounded like that was one they're happy with, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming also like your lighting for the proposed parking area that's been taken into consideration.
Yeah, we use the same type and same photometrics that we used last time. Make sure it's that or less. That's correct. Again, we don't need a ton out there. So it's a very minimal. They don't have a lot of outside people and stuff. Very, very minimal.
Say, I know you went
The
through
safety is that,
review.
Just minimal. We'd like the minimum.
And you did go through the review with the fire department?
We
I
have.
see you are suppressing the building.
We
though
are. It's not required, and we still are. Yes.
Okay.
And we'll make sure we have fire hydrants and all the stuff the chief needs to make sure it's a safe facility, for sure. Standard protocol.
Do we have any other questions? Do you want to do we need a couple minutes to just review our notes if anything else pops up?
So if I could just interject for a second, what we're talking about right at the moment is the special land use.
Yes, that's correct.
Application.
Yes.
And so it's kind of it's a two-step process. So some of the questions and things that you've asked about, we have more comment on and some more description and explanation in the actual site plan review letter, which I'll go over next.
Yes.
So I'm confused. So we're changing the zoning of this property?
No,
Or it's just a two-part.
No, it's the type of manufacturing use that they're proposing for this facility is listed as a special land use within the limited industrial district. So you have what we call by right uses, which, they're automatically allowed to have. And then there is a list of other things that they could have, but they require the permission of the planning commission to be able to move forward with that as a special land use. So that's all they're asking for in this particular part of the discussion is an approval of the special land use, which is manufacture of products that are made from metals, as it's defined in the ordinance.
Okay. And that, so the metals itself is what kicks it over into a special land use?
I don't know if it's the metals itself, it's the whole description of what it's being proposed for.
Ordinances are tough.
Yeah.
I have a business that doesn't fit into any ordinance. I have to get special land use for anything I want to do.
Got it.
And I'm just a retail place.
So the special land use specifically mentions that it's not only just the metals, but it's the assembly of parts and pieces, the manufacturing of those parts and pieces, processing of those parts and pieces, and that those items are made of various types of metals. It could be, whatever it is. But so it's assembly, manufacture, and processing of metals is the actual special land use.
All right, so it's like some type of legal circuit breaker
Yes, that's it.
type
So
situation on the ordinance, so we can trip
Review
a couple
it.
circuit breakers and stop
Yeah.
stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Got it.
Exactly.
Yes, the special land use, as I said, it gives the planning commission opportunity with review of the special land use with their application, that we could make some changes that still fall within their application and still allows us to, to put certain, if we need other criteria or certain restrictions that we feel are necessary.
Well, I would like to see a lot of the light pollution tightened down on our ordinances. I think that's really a big deal, because we're going to be using LED lighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
The LED lighting around 460 nanometers. So I'd like to get that looked at and shielded down to their property only. Would be great. I don't know if it's possible, but
It is.
This
some
is a
type of
question
shielding.
We have
ask
we
them?
provided photometrics, so there's no light off the property.
Okay.
Correct.
So, and just to clarify that, when they say that there's no light off the property, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to see the light from across the street or something to that effect. It means that the measurable amount of light at the property lines falls within a certain level. In this case, it's, I believe, 0.1 foot candles at the property line. And
Well, I just don't want to go across Dixie Highway into the other properties and be able to read a book from
About
their
where-
streetlights.
And that's exactly what the intent of the photometric plan and what they've provided in the site plan shows, is that it's gonna be that 0.1 or less at the property line. So hopefully and assuredly, you won't be able to read a book by their lights across the street.
Okay. Well, we could check that.
That's a good point,
Yeah.
yes.
Or like Genesis Hospital, it just glows when you come through it.
Yeah.
It just
You gotta wear
overdone.
sunglasses while you're driving
Yeah.
All
by.
night long it's on.
That's
so,
right. We
yeah,
don't want it
just
to look
This
like
is the
an
minimum.
airport.
We want the minimum, just enough to get people in. We're in the
Safely,
same.
you have to
We
have something.
agree with you. We want the minimum.
Acres, building compatible design, safety plan. Have you received confirmation from Genesee County yet on the, and it's all been signed,
Mhm.
you've received
Mhm.
that, okay. I do not have any further comments, but I'm gonna refer this back to the planning commission members. Is there any other comments or any other questions?
I'll make a motion,
All right, please state your motion as clearly as you can, as presented before us, and if there's anything additional.
I'd like to recommend approval for the application for site plan review for parcel number 0101603054.
I think we're going to be doing
Yeah,
this
it's not the
special
site plan. The
use.
site plan is the next item
Yep.
on the agenda.
Oh, I'm
This
sorry,
is
I think it's the wrong
special
one on
land
there.
use.
Yeah, it's the next one over.
Yep.
Yeah,
Too many
you
pages.
look if you wanna make it. Here.
Yeah, approve the application for special land use for parcel number,
It's right here, read.
where is it? 01/01/301/054.
Okay, I have a motion by Lloyd for the special land use application presented before us for parcel 01/01/301/054 in the light industrial district. Do I have
I
support
will
for that
support
motion?
that. Glenn Mitchell.
I have support from Glenn Mitchell. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Fletcher,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
Mazik,
Yes.
Kernan,
Yes.
Curtin,
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Yes. The application for site special land use has been approved. Okay, going forward, now you've got the site plan application in for you. And we have asked quite a few questions, we've brought up quite a few things, but if you wanna take a minute and go back through your notes before we go on to, for discussion for the site plan application.
By the way, page 3 of 3 has a little bit larger parcel. It has acreage of 1,053 acres.
I saw that.
So
I just
might
figured
want
it
to
was-
revise that number slightly, or maybe you're planning on expanding a little bit more than that.
I know, I first saw that and I went and I looked at that and I go, that was
Wow.
not 1,000 acres.
I figured that was just a typo. So. Do we want to have our planner give an explanation first? Is that what we're going to do? Or at least part of the differentiation?
Yes, if you'd like to go over it. And this way then, if there's something we didn't discuss or something that maybe we missed, it's a lot of paperwork before us and we can be sure that we're
great.
asking the right questions and that we know what we're looking at. So I
Yep.
appreciate that.
Yep, absolutely. So we all kind of know what we're talking about at this point. So I'll go through our review that we did. It's the second review on a set of revised plans that were resubmitted to us based on comments that the applicant had originally received from the Planning Commission and from our staff in our office. And I went through that and reviewed the plans against what was being asked for from that previous review, and that's sort of how my report centers itself around. But the one thing that I did do that John had asked that I specifically include with our report is a description of the enterprise and recreation district. So on the first page, it shows where the site is, and obviously it's, at the northwest corner of Dixie Highway and Belford Road. It's part of that larger 105-acre piece. You can see how it fits into the overall parcel. Then with regard to the enterprise and recreation district, which is described in the Township Master Plan, the master plan describes 4 principal development guidelines for new projects and construction within this district. And I've outlined those for you there, but a lot of them center around sustainable building, small setbacks, rural architecture, fitting into sort of that transition zone between, more developed to less developed. It is industrial property. It is on sort of the edge of where you see development happening along Dixie Highway. But on the converse side, it's also part of that corridor coming into town and part of sort of the entryway into the community. And so we want to make sure that it fits into the design criteria that were outlined in the master plan and are consistent with that and all of the requirements that come from this, the zoning code. So obviously preservation of natural features, topography, all of those sorts of things, the reduction and limitation of expansive areas of pavement should be limited, that you utilize innovative parking designs and things like that. And the last one is probably the most interesting one and the most flexible, and maybe one where the planning commission could express some interest in seeing something more deliberate happening with regard to landscaping and pedestrian access, which is the design principle suggests that wherever possible, public gathering spaces and pocket parks that preserve the natural environment in the ways that the community can be enjoyed and highly encouraged. I'm not suggesting that they provide a park on their property. However, the idea of complete streets and pedestrian-friendly access along that frontage, especially along Dixie Highway, not so much Belford, but as it becomes a starting point for what happens further down the line as those other properties are developed as you come down Dixie Highway off of 75 closer into the community. You know, the district envisions that as a connection with not only the district but the other areas that are immediately adjacent to that. You guys were discussing where the Renaissance Fair is in Mount Holly and all of those sort of other things that are happening just the other side. And so they see this parcel and this property as you're coming down Dixie Highway as a real connection point through there, and they want to make it as nice as it can possibly look as we go through the development, obviously still staying within the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So on page 2 of our report, I just go through some basic stuff. The subject property is zoned limited industrial. Proposed manufacturing plan is a special use, which you just granted to them. The lot coverage was added to the plans. It was deficient on the last set of plans. And if you look on page 3, the lot coverage shows it being 5.25% for the building coverage, and they are allowed up to a 30% max for building coverage within that district, so obviously it meets that criteria. Architecture and building design, which is section 32-163, talks about building facades greater than 100 feet in length. Now, I wasn't privy to the prior discussions about this, but my understanding is, in having looked at the architectural plans, there's several instances where the proposed building architecture does not meet this requirement. And so some suggestions were given to the applicant as to how they might mitigate that in lieu of making substantial architectural changes to the existing building. So they've done some things with banning of accent colors and change of materials and adding some windows and things like that. But we think that that problem can be better addressed through more appropriate, more extensive landscape program along Dixie Highway and to a certain extent along Belford Road that takes into account the existing vegetation that's there along with the addition of some proposed plantings which they've made provision and the suggestion of some of those on the current set of plans that we have. But we'd like to see something that's a little more park-like to fit within the suggestions and design guidelines of the master plan. We do suggest that the existing scrub row that's along Dixie Highway, that they go in and clean that up, make that portion of the Dixie Highway frontage be as similar and consistent to that which is currently in place on their facility north of that. That particular stretch doesn't have any existing trees along the road right of way and adjacent to Dixie Highway, so there's an opportunity here for us to meet with the applicant, find out exactly what's there, make recommendations for what should remain, what should come out, and based on what's left, to provide some additional plantings, probably most likely evergreens and some things like that that add to the complexity of the landscape makeup. that will help break up the visual nature of the facade that's along Dixie Highway. And we think that there's a solution there that could be approved by the planning commission that would be in lieu of making those architectural changes to the building, which, in my personal opinion, you try and make an industrial building look like a barn, it comes off not quite done very well sometimes, and it looks a little out of place and a little not quite right. So I think we can do a better job with the landscape than we can asking them to make architectural changes to the plans. As they've suggested, I'd be happy to meet with them, go out on site and do that identification process. My background is, I'm actually a landscape architect, so I would be the one who would be going out on site with
I thought it was his phone.
going out on site to meet with them and talking to them about what the preservation plan is for the existing stuff and what stuff should be gotten rid of, like invasive species and trees that we consider junk, which aren't really junk because they still contribute, but they're, you know, they tend to be soft-wooded trees that require a lot of maintenance. They're disease-ridden or they're invasive species, and so we would help them identify what those were, get rid of those, and replace them with more appropriate plantings. Item number 4, pedestrian circulation and sidewalks. The sidewalks have been proposed outside the building leading to parking lot, but there's no proposed sidewalk along Dixie Highway. The master plan identifies this area as a priority for complete streets, which do include sidewalks and walkable scaled amenities, and whether that's, you know, benches or, you know, things like that, that would be an appropriate addition as well. So our suggestion, while the previous review had suggested an actual easement to be provided to allow for the township to install a sidewalk if they wanted to at some future point, the planning commission could discuss as part of, since this is a special land use and you're granting them a special permission, if you felt like that was an integral part of what you wanted to see happen along there, it wouldn't be out of your purview to ask for that sidewalk to be provided by the applicant as part of the site plan approval process. But that's for you guys to discuss and decide. You know, if they provided an easement, that certainly is a step in the right direction. Our preference would be that that sidewalk is actually provided and that we work the sidewalk and the landscaping in together to make it more park-like, as I've described, which is one of the design criteria from the master plan. As far as general standards, the setback, circulation, loading areas, all of that stuff, the site plan meets those required standards. As far as off-street parking goes, they have identified what their proposal is. The requirement being 213 spaces based on the size of the building, and in some instances by the number of employees. The applicant is actually proposing 251 spaces total, but of those, only 104 are proposed to be constructed initially as part of the site plan development for the building, and then, as I understand it, as business increases and the need for additional parking increases, that those would be constructed at some future point.
I think they're only land bank. They're just there to meet the ordinance. We don't need them for the people that they need. They're only there to, again, to go with the spirit of not having a sea of concrete. So we want to be, here's what the intent was. We have enough property for it. We'll set them aside so you can feel comfortable that the facility has it, but we'd only like to build what we actually need, which would be less.
So what that does is that gives the planning commission then the ability to, in the future, if they, for whatever reason, not that this would happen, but discover that there's all of a sudden a larger number of parking and cars requiring parking on that facility, and you find them parking on a driveway or, you know, or out into the street or into the side yards or on the grass or something like that, you could go in and require then the applicant to construct those additional parking spaces because they are part of the plan, they've been part of the site plan, they're approved for construction, and it's per the ordinance to require parking for sufficiently the number of employees and people using the facility. So from a planning perspective, I'm very happy with how it is because I prefer that they construct less parking and provide less, concrete on the site and land bank as many of those as possible. So we're actually in strong favor of what they're proposing with regard to parking spaces. We also did note that previously they had been noted as 9 feet wide. They've been changed, modified, and revised to be 9.5 feet by 20 feet, which is the
Did they
required,
increase that?
yeah, required parking dimensions. And the barrier-free spaces that had been shown in the reserved parking area, there is a spot identified on the site plan that shows that if they're needed, there's a spot immediately adjacent to the building entrances that those spaces could be restriped to become barrier-free depending on the number of users that they would have that would require that barrier-free parking. So that satisfies our concern as well. With regard to landscaping, there's several sort of components to this. You've got parking lot landscaping, greenbelt site landscaping, and I'll just quickly go through those. As far as parking lot landscaping goes, we looked at what the landscape architect had proposed with regard to the site plan, and noted that the requirement for the 18 trees, or I'm sorry, the 13 trees for the to-be-built parking were proposed, and that there would be another 18 for the reserved if in fact, or in the eventuality that gets built. However, the applicant is actually proposing to install all of those trees all at once as part of this construction for this site. So it's a total of, what is that, 31 trees total. So our recommendation is they can either keep it the way it is and show on the plans 18 additional trees that would be part of the future landscaping, or they could spread the existing trees that they're proposing out. But either way, it meets the intent of the ordinance and the requirements for parking lot landscaping. As far as trees go. In addition, parking lots shall be screened from public view from any public road with a solid wall at least 4 feet in height, and that the planning commission may approve alternative landscaping in lieu of the wall. I think there was some misunderstanding initially that the wall might be required along the entire frontage of Dixie Highway. That's not the case. It's really only to screen the visible areas of the parking lot that would be visible from either Dixie Highway or from Belford roads. So what we did notice is that the applicant has provided a significant amount of landscaping near the entrance of the building and around the front sides, which would be the east side of the parking lot that's between the parking lot and Dixie Highway. Sufficient enough that we would recommend that it's sufficient in lieu of that 4-foot required screening wall. But we did notice that there wasn't any landscaping added to the parking lot that's visible from Belford Road. So we would ask that additional landscaping be proposed to address that condition. And then certainly any proposed screening that would be required for those banked parking spaces only be constructed or installed at the time that those parking spaces are constructed and installed. But that still would be a requirement for them at the time that they actually wanted to go forward with construction for those banked parking spaces. So as far as greenbelt landscaping goes, 1 tree is required for each lineal foot of fronted on public road and shall be provided within area establish the depth of the required front yard setback. So we noted on sheet C24 that the applicant has identified 786 lineal feet of public road frontage, therefore requiring 27 trees to be planted. The applicant is currently proposing 14 new trees, but wanted to count trees that were located within the area not to be disturbed, which we were discussing earlier, in lieu of planting new trees. And so I would say this goes back to what we were talking earlier about trees such as oaks, hickories, maples, things that we would consider non-invasive and native tree species, native Michigan tree species. We would encourage them to keep as many of those as they can along both the Dixie Highway road frontage and the Belford road frontage, but to go in and eliminate competing understory, competing scrub growth, any pioneer species, any invasive species out of that area, and augment those plantings then with some shrubs, evergreen trees, some ornamental trees, things like that, to really help beautify that stretch of road as you're coming down Dixie Highway, to be consistent with the master plan. And it seems like, from what I've heard so far, the applicant is willing to take that walk with me and have that discussion, and I think that we could come up with something that would be definitely suitable as a mechanism in lieu of just the 14 trees that are being proposed, plus counting the 12 additional ones. We may find that there's far more than 12 additional trees out there, and they're far exceeding the requirement when we actually go out and identify the trees that are existing on the site.
Just a question on the trees that you planted with this current building. Are they doing okay?
They're doing great.
They all doing great?
Doing good so far, but we'd like some of those big ones. I like those. I drove with my daughter again this weekend, and there's some nice trees there, so we'd like to keep all those big ones.
Right.
You can have the willows, though. I don't want any
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know if that's a good tree or not, but I don't like willows. So you can.
Yeah, those are called high maintenance.
Okay.
And messy. They qualify in my official landscape architecture
Right.
jargon as junk
Yeah.
tree.
And I think with the way the property sloped off, and the first one was really low, and the road was lower. So again, when we put the berm in, so this one it's actually higher. I think so. Trees will stay. So that's great.
So with regard to site landscaping, 10% of the site area excluding the existing right-of-way shall be landscaped in addition to any parking lot or greenbelt landscaping. The construction site area is 23.12 acres, therefore 2.3 acres or 10% shall be landscaped. The applicant is proposing more than that at 3.61 acres of site landscaping, which exceeds the amount and we would find acceptable. There were some concerns about the details for the trash enclosure that were missing from the previous review. Those items have been added to the plans on sheet C5 and C16, and the materials color and height and the construction are not only consistent with the code, but they're consistent with in matching the colors of the existing building, so it'll be uniform look visually as you're looking at those details. We talked a little bit about site lighting earlier when we were discussing the special land use. The lighting plans were provided on a sheet 1 of 1 from their lighting consultant. The proposed lighting will use downward shielded light fixtures with a height of 25 feet or less. The maximum on-site brightness, which would be immediately adjacent to places like entries, parking areas close to the building, loading docks, those sorts of things, is 3.7 foot candles. But the maximum brightness at the property line is 0.1 foot candles, which is consistent with the code and you'd find acceptable. As far as ingress and egress goes, you have the existing driveway off of Dixie, which would be used for day-to-day use, and an emergency-only access drive is proposed to connect the internal driveway system to Belford Road at the south, on the south side of the property. It does transect a fairly steep area of the property, and I know this came up, I looked at the fire marshal's review comments, and he wanted to make sure that
Right.
wasn't going to exceed his, I think, 6% grade
Correct.
that he was looking at. So I don't know if revisions needed to be made to the grading in that area, but it looked like it was steeper than 6% to me.
That drive is at 6%.
Okay.
Yep.
I-
I tweaked a little bit, but we
Yeah,
got
yeah.
it to 6%.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
deferred to the engineer and the fire marshal to comply with that particular thing, but we're happy to see the secondary emergency access being provided. It's always good to have more than one way out of a place.
Yes, they were
when you
adding that
need to.
road.
We defer obviously to the fire marshal's comments, and questions that you might have, and certainly the township engineer for their review and any review comments. So ultimately, our recommendation, we have some outstanding issues, but we think that those should be addressed prior to final site plan approval. However, the planning commission may proceed with the consideration of the proposed site plan and grant final site plan approval conditioned upon items being satisfied either by the fire marshal, the engineer's report, or report, whatever conditions you would like to do with that to keep the process moving forward. So you kind of have a couple options to think about and discuss, but certainly the things that we would like to see, number one, you've already taken care of, which was the requirement for receiving a special land use approval. That was done tonight, so that's taken care of. Demonstrate an adequate landscaping along Dixie Highway in lieu of revising the designs for the facade, and that is consistent with the master plan. Provide an easement, and we're suggesting that they actually install a pedestrian pathway along Dixie Highway to make that consistent with the master plan, and to help it be more in line with that park-like setting that we were talking about earlier, and revise the landscaping plans for the proper distribution of parking lot trees if you choose to, understanding what you're wanting to do, that may not be necessary, an accurate calculation of the greenbelt plantings based on what they determine and what we determine might be the number of trees that are actually being kept, that are existing on site. That would be clarification that would be needed, and then just providing that additional little bit of screening for the parking lot on the south side off of Belford Road. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I'm sure I've given you the
So my question about this proposed walkway, is this is something that would be revisited later, I'm guessing, or is this something that'd be talked about now? Because my fear is we put in a sidewalk that would virtually go to nowhere, and then as time goes on, we have more, places coming in. The sidewalks wouldn't match in color; they wouldn't match in several different things, making the characteristics of the sidewalk.
And that was our concern. So, we kind of talked internally. We are for walking, just, but not a walk to nowhere. So we said if you ever updated the road or put a sidewalk or connected, we'll be the first one to put the sidewalk in. You can put it on record, whatever you need to do. We want the sidewalk there with a place to go and walk to. But by the time that sidewalks ever happen, or if Dixie gets updated, it may be in the wrong spot. The sidewalks, like I said, wrong elevation. If something happens with Belford Road, we don't connect right. Again, it will just, for them, it will only be 100% their maintenance and 100% for them with no place to go. So we're all for the walk-in. We all think it's great for the community. Make sure it's included in the landscaping. Just want to be on record. We'll be the first one to put it in when it's appropriate, when the township is ready to receive stuff on either side. But we don't think you currently are prepared to do that. But we want to be the Pied Piper for sure. We just don't want to, to your point, we just don't put it in and find out it's not the right elevation, doesn't account for the drainage. If the road gets widened, the utilities, again, none of that drainage, all needs to be done in master plan with Dixie in the widening and the utilities that go through there. So again, if the drainage isn't done, then we've got the sidewalk totally wrong. We're going to tear it all out.
So my recommendation to address that particular issue is I think you could have them show on the plans a proposed future sidewalk to be constructed at the direction of the township as part of the final site plan approval. And that would give you, first of all, it would be an approval for the sidewalk. Second of all, it would have the developer on record as being the one responsible for installing it, but it would be at the township's direction as to where and when it gets installed.
On that secondary drive, the secondary drive says it's going to be an all-weather surface. What does that mean?
The secondary drive is emergency access only, and as far as the paving material, I'll let the engineer address
It's
that.
proposed as asphalt.
And we'd prefer it to be at most places that, on a green environment, we would build a stone road with the right loading for the fire department. We'd put grass over top of it. That'd be my recommendation to the fire chief. They have, basically you rate the road for the loading, but then it looks like grass for the neighbors and everybody else. So, but the chief, there's a loading for the fire trucks, and you basically build a gravel road like Belford Road. So we build basically Belford Road, but then you put topsoil and grass over top of it. So technically it's an all-season road.
And that's what's proposed?
That's my recommendation, but the ordinance doesn't allow for that kind of question. So again, in being green, if I was in a green community, that's what we'd recommend. And Ann Arbor and other places allow me to do that.
Gated, right?
Huh? And it'd be gated, yeah.
Mhm.
So we're just open. We just want some flexibility. If we could be green or environmentally friendly, if the fire chief allows, we'd prefer that. I don't know that it costs us any less because you still got to build the road with the same sub base. You're talking about taking the asphalt layer, which all the base, the stone base is the weight. The asphalt is the topping or concrete or grass. So then that we'd prefer to have grass for beauty than asphalt. But again, it's a planner's call if we could build it that way.
I'm going to take a pass on that.
And we'd be able to, you could put it for the chief, if the chief likes it asphalt, we're good with that. But we'd prefer, if you'd prefer a greener, an Ann Arbor version, right, we'd prefer to try to.
It'll be rarely used, right?
It's
just
only in
emergency.
case of, if a fire, the fire chief has to get in there.
It was, I think you told us last time we talked about it, was if the front entrance gets blocked because of
I'm
the
gonna
fire,
see
Can
if
get
we
in.
can
no way to get
reference.
into
No.
the back or
Mhm.
something.
So the goal would be never used.
Give another access.
But we need to build it structurally so that a fire truck can get it in all weather, so it does need to be that, but.
So,
I think they would be fine with that, and I think that's what we really want
Yeah,
in the township is to have that green.
so if we
and
could
I
have,
would suggest that that's extremely consistent with the intent of the master plan for that area, is that you're using sustainable building practices and keeping as much green and reduction of stormwater and stormwater quality management and all of those sorts of things. So, I mean, I certainly would be in favor of it if the fire marshal was
The
willing
fire
to
marshal
accept that
would
as
review.
and a lot of facilities have the 60-foot radius, for the fire department, so obviously if a big facility wouldn't want to bring up asphalt, I think in your place down in Howell, we have that on the backside.
So I think at that point then we just refer this back to the fire marshal, or
Well, yeah, we can have, you could make your final approval, and then we typically do all the, necessary things that have to be
Right.
addressed by the engineer, the fire department, and the planner.
And what's the specific name for that? Green driveway or green roadway? or-
It would be a stone, it would be the all-season stone, similar to Belford Road
all
with,
season stone.
yeah, similar to Belford Road with, grass on top.
So you could
And
say
the-
final approval subject to, them doing, all of these things.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say it's a lush lawn, because you can't put a lot of topsoil and grass on it, but it's all green instead of black asphalt.
You gave us a very thorough review,
Did a
and
nice
it's
job.
a lot of information, so maybe we just take one thing at a time here, and then if we have some comments or to make sure that we're not forgetting something. You talked about the design for the building, the corridor. I mean, if you look at Dixie Highway coming down, you've got Grand Blanc going into Groveland Township, going to Springfield. And according to the master plan, the intent is eventually down the road, this is all going to be developed. So whatever standards we put on today, it is a welcome. It's a
For sure.
welcome into our community, it's a welcome of what we have. And when you have something nice, it also draws better businesses and attracts a better community. So what does the board think about any design standards or architectural standards or color enhancements or anything on the building, according to some of the recommendations you made.
I like the idea of more landscaping instead of forcing them to build a building that looks like we want, but not necessarily practical for what they need. And I think landscaping, again, yeah, it could be much different this time, but I thought everybody seemed to be pretty happy with what they did last time. Last time they did take out a lot of trees, I believe, and plant new ones in, but if they could leave some. The problem with that area, and I could be wrong, but there is a lot of scrub to that. It's hard to remove scrub trees without damaging the good trees.
Yes.
So it's a very delicate process when you're trying to
Yes.
save a good tree
Right.
and take out the rest of them that are scrub trees. So
A
Agreed.
lot of undergrowth as you go along
Right.
Belford Road. But looking at, the outside of your building, your color or whatever, I'm trying to think when I drove by what I
Like a
remember
sandy,
from your
like a
current
sandy
building,
tan. Yeah.
what you're maybe proposing on the outside.
Very
of
similar.
this.
So it'd be the same, that nice earth tone colors of the material on the exterior. John's got a rendering. Look at this. Wow, John.
Yeah, if we could see that, that would be great.
Look at John. Look at that. It's like van. So basically, it would be the same again. So the goal would be pre-colored block, right? So similar to, well, it wouldn't be the painted block. So pre-colored, so there's never the color of the block never needs to be painted. It's an integral color built right in, right, to meet the energy code now. A smooth, basically a concrete-looking exterior metal panel, again permanently finished. Again meets the energy code, and then again probably more than a 50-year roof on it, metal
Okay.
roof, so that there's no, again, sustainable. So their goal is same thing, LEED type certified without being certified, but long-lasting material. So again, it will look this way through our lifetime.
How many square feet is each building?
So the distribution centers are 70, and they're made to be duplicated to, so 140 approximately.
150-ish.
Yeah,
150
yeah.
for DC, and this is about 160.
In 60s, yeah. So,
All right.
yeah. So when you look at the aerial, the kind of the space that's carved out for the current building will be about what this one is too. So when you look at the grass and the dry, I think we built the road. Planners allowed us to build the road so that the building went in the inside of it when you drive out there. So again, our thing would be like, I think when I drove in here this weekend with my daughter, like this gets heavily, it's not as heavily vegetated here, so maybe we could landscape really nice here and make that all, I call it pretty, the smaller, the cute stuff around the plantings, and make that all different, and then kind of make it more forestry or more heavily wooded with evergreens if there's, and again, if there's locations where there's a bunch of scrub and there's this giant, we don't want that either, so we want it to look nice. I just don't know how, at the moment, which one's scrub and which one's not, and so, again, we may take out a section, there's 2 or 3 of those. And when I took pictures, these are all big, and especially down the Belford Road. But again, the parking lot here, we need to put some of that landscaping there on the south side of it, that's fine. Again, not counting what, how you can see through and what you can't, that's glad to screen that. I think that's a good idea, I think this is a good idea too here. But your materials, that long-lasting color there, again, some really mild colors so that it just kind of blends in. If the trees are up, it should be a nice looking facility in there.
Yeah, I think you could do a lot with trees. I mean, there's red maples and some hickory, to add some color, so you're not just planting a tree that you're
think
gonna
one
have
almost
to
looked like a
worry
tricolored
in
maple.
2 years is gonna die and,
Yeah.
is native more to Michigan.
Is there a way that we can, I would rather use landscaping instead of the 4-foot walls.
Yes.
Yeah.
But is there a way we can add the 4-foot walls to the plan for when, not saying that you're going out of business, but the next people that move in, if they decide they don't want landscaping and they clear cut everything, and then we don't have any walls obscuring, it's like a backup plan in case they decide they want to get rid of all of it.
I think all the parking is screened behind the whole building, so instead of a 4-foot wall, it's the whole building is a
70-foot wall? Yeah.
Whatever it is, right? So the only thing they have here is visitor parking.
Oh, okay.
And
So-
then, I want to point out that your Belford Road sight line, the parking lot is about 12 to 17 feet below Belford Road. So it's
We're carving out the dirt to
Yes.
bunker it and hide it.
So the elevation will drop there.
12 feet.
I think you
Yeah,
can
right
know
about
that.
12 foot down
Look at that.
Belford Road.
That's why we brought you,
Yeah.
smart guy. We brought the smart guy, Justin.
That's why we had that grade
Yeah.
concern from the fire chief.
Yes.
Because it goes into that hill, basically, if the hill, as you go up Belford Road, it starts to go up the hill, and like I said, I think up in here where the next building would be, is, like I said, it might be 30 or 40 feet taller. So we'll be carving out that back side on the parking lot.
So
on
that's
that side.
where initially on the landscaping plan too, we didn't have, I guess, like that 4-foot shrub, planting on that edge, back edge
'Cause
of
it
the
was
parking
sloping
lot,
up.
cause they're gonna be 12 feet below the road with, and trees on Belford Road.
But if we need to put some there
But,
again with the
yeah.
road, again, we want what's right. So
Exactly.
again, I think our only thing is make sure we landscape this nicely according to your, like you said, just a proper screening, but being able to have visitors see that that's the place they pull into. So,
I mean, when you go in and you disturb a site and you're gonna clear it and you're gonna get ready for construction, and then sometimes you go in and, you know, depending on the soil and what you have there.
yeah.
Since we are concerned about landscaping and we are asking for more landscaping, could we ask you to submit to us a final plan for
Absolutely.
changes or whatever else you
Yeah,
would
with
like
the-
to have with your landscaping so that we could
Yes.
take a look at it? And if we, you know, in looking at it, Township, in their review, decides, well, we really don't like that, we would like a little something different, they could do it at that
Absolutely.
point. Because
Absolutely.
certainly to,
I mean,
you
if
know,
it's, right, if it's a
could we
great wall
ask
of
that?
China, but, you know,
to
yes.
resubmit to
for
us
sure. For sure.
your final
Yeah, we
plan.
want to walk the site and resubmit it to the town. We'll put it in writing what we're doing so that they have a revised plan once we figure out what comes down, for sure. We'll absolutely
Okay.
revise it and get it back to the planners and Karen, for sure.
Don't we in fact have a tree ordinance? Not that I wanted one, but basically
You
deals
do.
with a lot of that.
You do, so we'll follow that and we'll, again, once we identify what we're actually doing, you'll have record and we'll submit it. And if Karen wants something
Okay,
different, she'll
resubmit.
call and say, they said do something different. We will. I don't want to be in trouble.
No.
I can do that on my
Okay,
own. I don't
what
need help.
else do we need? I thought it was interesting, your comments when you referred to, you know, doing something more on the property, a park or whatever, so it made me wonder, do you section off, or do you have a little spot that you have for your employees if they go out and you have picnic tables or an area or something for them?
I'm trying to figure out how right now, I don't really have any, they have to out for lunch and they take a.
Yeah, we let the employees vote if they wanna work a straight shift. They can just grab lunch on their own. Most of them choose to do that.
I think most of our
Just
employees now are,
curiosity, I didn't know if you planned something like that, not that
yeah.
not that site plan hinges on that, but I just curious myself. The side of the building, the landscaping, you talked about the parking, and you
Mhm.
added the extra parking, and all of the parking, additional parking, all of that for future, that'll all be noted on your plans.
It's all in the plan.
I noticed going through some things, there's some areas where they're asking for, you know, some things aren't noted, pipe size or the drainage or different things.
If it needs to be
Now,
on there and when it's
the-
missing, we'll get it to Karen.
So,
When Karen says it's good,
all
we're
of the
good.
plans will be updated, so
Yes.
that the township has a complete
Correct.
updated copy that will be there at the
Correct.
township, and then how will that get reviewed? So you will review that.
They do.
I
Okay.
mean, ultimately, the way I see this shaping up is there'll be a consultation that I can go out, meet with the applicant on site, walk through the site.
And make sure, I
and
think that would be
and
appropriate.
talk to them about trees and whatnot. Then they'll send me back a plan, based on our walk and which trees they wanna keep and which ones we've said need to go and so on and so forth. And then I'll review that plan and give you a recommendation to say, yeah, I think this does a really good job, or they could use a few more here or there, or
I
no,
think
this
that would
doesn't
be
work
good.
at all. You
Right.
know, but it sounds to me like we're headed in the right direction.
Yep. Any other questions, any other thoughts?
guess I want to go back to the sidewalk issue. I don't think it makes sense, like I said, to put a sidewalk in now or require it now. But in the plans they propose, there isn't, it's possible that we could go in and still have them do that. Is that correct?
Yes.
That wouldn't prevent us from going, it's not like once we approve this, that we can't go back and say you need to put a sidewalk in at some point in time.
Once a site plan is approved, it's the gospel. And so, yes, you have absolutely right to go in. I mean, for instance, if they decided to build a completely different building on the site plan, you'd be like, well, no, you can't do that. You gotta take it down and build
That's
the
right.
correct building because that's not the building that was approved. Same thing with the sidewalk. If it's shown on there as a future land use that's, or a future amenity that's to be constructed and installed and paid for by the applicant, but execution and timing of that is done at the direction of a township, and that's on the plan, that's just, it's the same thing.
I just don't see it ever being necessary along Dixie Highway. I don't want people crossing the road to use it, because it's a dangerous, a lot of traffic through there. So Belford was a possibility at some point in time, but that's
Yeah.
a long ways away, I think.
And I
right
believe
now.
your sewer and water's coming too, and that'll affect that too. I think that, again, I know
That's
the
true.
sewer's coming from KCI, so I do know that. So we'll show it, maybe show it meandering through the stuff, and we'll get it on the plans, and then we'll write the notes per your direction when, you know, the sewer and water and all that gets figured out.
Yeah, and as the chairman pointed out, you know, this entire corridor is master planned to be developed over time. And so while we may not see imminent need for it within the next year or a couple of years for sidewalks and pedestrian circulation through that area, as that area is developed subsequently, there will need to be those sorts of connections to be made on adjacent properties, and we'd like this to be part of the patchwork as well.
Agreed.
Just need to look through real quick my notes.
So with all these changes to the plan, what are we approving tonight? The final plans? Or it sounds like we're gonna approve something and then you're gonna work on something and then come back to us for,
Well-
where do we?
Yeah, so you have, well, you have several options. You could approve it with a bunch of conditions and then rely on your consultants and the township staff to go through and make those reviews, make sure that everything's been done according to what the approval with conditions stipulates that you would set forth. You have the option to simply approve it as it is and not require any of the additional changes that we're suggesting or requiring. You could table it to a date certain that would allow us the opportunity to go out, do those things, have them submit plans to us, review them, and then provide that review back to the planning commission where it would come up again for your review and discussion, or you could deny it, which I don't think is the direction we're headed at all, but you have several ways that you can sort of skin this cat.
Maybe I missed it, but I thought it was in there that they would be leaving trees. And do we need more detail than that? I hate to, you know, they need to have an approval to go forward, so I don't want to stop something that's in.
Correct.
To me, it looks like they're in the same direction that we want to go.
Correct.
So
And-
I hate to put too many conditions on if it's already pretty much covered in there.
And that's up to the comfort level of the planning commission and whatnot. I heard the chair talk about having the revisions made and then bringing it back for us for the planning commission to look at again. But if you approve it with conditions, then you're leaving it up to the township staff and the consultants like myself and the engineer and the fire marshal to do your work for you.
No,
Understanding what you guys want to see and what the intent is, and then just moving the project forward that way.
No, I think what I meant was that if we did put conditions on to make sure that all of those conditions are met, that not necessarily hold it up to come back to the planning commission, but it would go to, where would it go? Would we have, for our
Yeah.
consultants,
It would go to
Ms.
the
Geltman,
consult- it would
and
go
to
to the
make sure
consultants
that
and the fire
everything's
chief.
met.
Yep.
At that point, if all of these conditions, those extra conditions that we stipulate, or making sure that all the plans are updated are not met, at that point, you might say, you know, we have an issue here, and
And that's exactly right. And
That
if-
was
if
my
we-
intent.
If for some unforeseeable reason we came to an impasse with regard to, they say
Landscaping, right.
You know, I would make contact with the township and with the planning commission and say, we have an issue that needs some further further discussion from your perspective, and we would bring it back before the planning commission to resolve that issue.
but we do have our consultant and our staff, the township staff, which also would direct us in that area, I feel.
And we did that last
Yes.
time.
Approve,
Yeah.
you could approve it subject to, them making all the revisions
Mhm.
per your discussion tonight.
And that's the same process we used last time, exactly the same. We walked with it, so. And
So that,
again,
that isn't a problem for you as far as timing of having?
no, we're gonna get started here this fall. I wanna beat the winter. Unfortunately, now I'm only talking about snow. It's sad. We're only a few months away from Thanksgiving, which could be snow. So again, with the landscaping, and we got a landscape architect for a planner. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
really, like, kudos to you guys. So again, we'd be amicable to doing it the same way we did last time, which is amending our landscape plan, getting the sidewalk shown, finding out where they want it, keeping it out. Justin's gonna remind me that the KCI sewer upgrade is gonna happen, and it can't go on a straight line, it would get torn up. So we need to show it in a spot that could be good, and fix that landscaping, walk it, and turn that back into the township and meet with the fire chief. We'd like to do those things like we did last time, and that would allow the process to go forward, and then us to make plans for, you know, October, November, or whenever. Again, just beat the snow. That's all we're trying to do, is get started a little bit before the snow, and then again, get them making widgets late next fall. So I just need to come out of the ground good in the spring is all, so.
So in the meantime, while they're doing all this, we, like the last one, because of the timing and the complexity, we gave them foundation-only
Yeah.
permits so that they could get it in before the winter.
Okay.
So I think that they want to follow
Very
that
similar
same
protocol, yeah.
All right, because of course that would, be yes,
Yeah.
would approve through your department,
Yes.
yes. All right, so before we make a motion or whatever, just so we are clear on what we're looking at right now. If we and the board approves final site plan, it would be subject to certain conditions, which would be, the plans would be completely updated with all of the measurements and requirements that have been, reviewed by the consultants. The sidewalks would be on the plans based on the fact that going forward, it would be at the discretion of the township. It would be reviewed by the fire chief, the fire department for that secondary driveway, the construction of the secondary driveway. They would resubmit to us a landscaping plan to show any designs, additions of trees, landscaping in the front. And we would ask our consultant, township consultant, then and the township staff to do the final review to make sure all of it's met. If it is not, then it would come back to the planning commission. Does that sound like where we're at?
Yes.
Any questions? Anybody have any other
Good
thought?
job. That's well done.
Well, again, I thought the sidewalks were really addressed already in what was
Yes.
proposed, so I don't think we need to put that in a condition.
Yes.
The two other items, I think, would be.
So with that, if, we will need a motion. I have somebody to make a
We
motion.
ready for that? I make a motion for Shannon Precision Fasteners, site plan application for manufacturing plan on parcel number 0101301054 in an L-1 limited industrial zoning district to be approved with the conditions of the second driveway, or be an all seasons driveway with grass, with the condition that the fire marshal or fire department, fire authority approve such a driveway, and also with the idea that the township planner with the township officials, approve the landscaping adjustments. I didn't put in, I didn't think it had to come back to us. I think that's a little more micromanagement than I think we need, but that's my opinion on that.
It would probably automatically come back to us, is the problem. I would support that.
All right, we have a motion on the board to approve the site plan application for the manufacturing plant on 01/01/301/054, with the second drive being all season grass with the fire chief's approval, the township planner to review the plans for all of the updates. I know you added a little more to that with
I
the
said the
update.
landscape adjustments is the way I said
With
it.
all, any adjustments that we've added
I said planner and township
by
officials is the way I
the, by
said
the
it, yeah.
planner and the township officials. So I have a motion and a second. Are we ready?
Just one quick suggestion is to be more concise. You might want to specifically reference the concerns and issues outlined in the planner's report and the engineering report and the fire marshal's review.
Yeah, those should be at a minimum
Yes.
Yes.
added.
Yes.
Is there a listing of those that we have that?
Well, they're,
Part of the reviews.
yeah, they're
Yeah, I thought
listed
they-
in the reviews.
I thought the fire marshal was satisfied with most everything, right?
That's what I got from the
That's
last
right.
one we had, yeah.
So we need.
The only issue was, in this particular case, is gonna be the approval of the grass driveway.
Right,
Yes.
right, that was our addition to that, but everything else he addressed except something about the loop water system, but they weren't gonna do right now, but they'll do that later maybe.
Right, so we have a motion on the table, but we want to amend that motion to add, so I think I need a motion to amend the motion, if I'm
I'm
correct.
making the maker that takes that
Or
place.
we
Yeah,
could just,
let's
just
let
amend the
Glenn-
motion to
with this.
include the recommendations
But I'm looking for the wording, what you want us to do, I
by the
guess, is
consultant.
with the conditions put forward by the planner, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
The concerns.
in
out-
acknowledgement
With
of
the
the
concerns
concerns
and
of the
conditions
Yeah.
township planners?
and the fire marshal.
That
and
sounds
the
good to me.
engineers.
I will amend my motion for that. And Ray, I think, has to approve that.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Certainly. Burton,
Yes.
McCamey,
Yes.
Fletcher,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Curtin,
Yes.
Kernan,
Yes.
Mason.
Yes. All right. You have site plan approval.
Thank
and
you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So moving forward with our agenda, we have reports. We have reports from, Karen, do you have any reports that you'd like anything to report to us?
The only thing I would have is for those who are not aware, the township did uphold the decision made by the planning commission regarding the rural estate property that we discussed last month, or 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So we did uphold that decision, and that's all I have.
Okay, any questions on that? Anybody else have any reports? No, with that, I think we have no more reports. Is there anybody with, like, public comment? No public comment from the audience? Nobody wants to stand up and give us any information, anything new going on in the community, anything we should know? All right, well, we certainly appreciate you attending. So with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. If everybody's so
Okay.
shy, they won't do that.
All right, I will second that. So we are adjourning this meeting, and our next meeting is October the 5th, here. Very
Supposed to
good.
hit the hammer now, that you adjourned it.
Oh,
You had that for a reason, you know, you're in charge.
okay, wow. Those motions can be a little hard when you've got to put so much and try to write as much to make sure we got it all down.
Yep.
Good job.
We were in the building out there. It's great in this world that, you know, you're expanding.
I wanted to point out the board,
No,
looking at all these things.
they have site plan approval, they have approval for their special use and for site plan. So they can go ahead and start moving forward
You have to be a
with the site.
substantial size.
They will have to